So what exactly are concepts? How do they ruin our lives? How can we go beyond concepts and prevent them from ruining our lives? If you notice that you keep following the same script, stepping on the same rake over and over again, your arguments always unfold in the same way, and you feel the same in situations that are unpleasant for you, because you're unlikely to be thinking about pleasant ones. At that moment, then this video is for you. And it's me again, Igor Pogodin. Hello! And we're starting our conversation. Stay with us until the end. And I hope you'll be able to get answers to many of your questions. Throughout all my videos here on this channel, I quite often use the word concept. And many of you write, so what exactly is a concept? I don't understand. And in different videos, I've touched on this in passing. Perhaps a few years ago, I even recorded a separate video about it. But since you keep stumbling over this point, I decided to make a dedicated video and at the same time comment on the way it would be productive to deal with what I call concepts. So what is a concept? Well, we're used to the word concept as some kind of theoretical construct that connects certain facts, circumstances, assumptions, and hypotheses into a single integrated system that would explain the essence of what's happening in life. I would rather call these second-order concepts. We are already appealing to certain concepts that have formed in a much deeper way, and we build our own theoretical framework, calling these concepts. So let me refer to these as second-order concepts. But what are basic concepts, first-order concepts? I'm not sure how many professionals are watching here, people who are familiar with psychotherapy, who have read my books. So let me try to explain this as simply as possible. A concept is a certain set of habits: emotional, mental, behavioral, elective, and even existential habits. It's what your consciousness has been conditioned to. Have you noticed that in the same situations, you tend to feel the same emotions? For example, whenever you find yourself in a group of more than 3 unfamiliar people, you always feel awkward, embarrassed, and it happens every single time. Have you noticed that every time your husband or wife says a certain phrase, you feel angry? And every time your coworkers or colleagues at work behave in a certain way, you always feel the urge to outdo the competition, or you feel envy or some other emotions. You keep finding yourself in the same place over and over again. When you feel and see that your opinion doesn't align with the opinions of others who are expressing theirs, you want to argue with them and can't let it go. That's a concept. Of course, there are habits that are more noticeable to you, like when you overeat or accordingly abuse alcohol, smoke, and so on. And there are concepts that are much less noticeable. Well, for example, bronchial asthma is also a concept. Gastroduodenitis is also a concept. Compulsive disorder is also a concept. If you notice, there are the same habits there because bodily habits are also habits. Notice that every time, for example, when you interact in a similar situation, you start to get a headache. When your conversation partner says certain words, you start to get a headache, or your stomach starts to hurt. Isn't that right? And people try to explain this. He suppresses his aggression and he starts to get a headache. This is psychosomatics. You can explain it that way, but that's just an attempt to explain the concept itself. But I want you not to explain this concept, but simply to learn how to recognize it. So a concept is a habit. How does this happen? Let me try to explain it on my fingers as well. Usually this happens, of course, from experience. Well, for example, let's say you wanted to be, or rather, you were a creative boy or girl, inclined towards self-expression, and you love to dance, make noise, attract attention, maybe recite poems or draw and show your work to everyone. But your noisiness wasn't really appropriate. When guests came to visit your mother, she would say, "Stop it, you're bothering us," or something like that. You realize that what you were doing wasn't really appropriate. And your mother might also say, "Aren't you ashamed? Can't you see the adults are busy?" You start to feel ashamed. She said it once, twice, 3 times. You got used to it. And now you see that when other people appear, when you want to behave a certain way, to express yourself emotionally, to follow your desires, you feel a threat of rejection from others, and you have a reaction that stops this vitality, which at that time your mother called shame, and it all became connected. Is that clear? And now all these things all these phenomena, all these characters appear in your play on stage simultaneously. That is, every time some people come, people who are unfamiliar to you, you feel ashamed. You no longer notice that at this moment you are aware of your desires. There are a lot of desires in the studio, a lot of vitality. It is a reservoir of a vital energy. Shame, and we fight against it. Just imagine it's a reservoir of vital energy. And on top of that, we deploy the guard. We use an enormous amount of energy to suppress an enormous amount of energy. And that's why in shame, you feel apathetic, helpless, psychosomatically terrible. And of course, you start sweating, your face turns red, you try to curl up, your head sinks into your shoulders, and you wish you could sink through the floor. All of this happens at the same time. These are all characters in the play, and they come into contact as a package. When one of the characters steps onto the stage, all the others come out with them. We go everywhere together, like Tamara and I. This is the concept. In other words, this is the habit. The word habit might not fully capture what I'm trying to describe, but you understand the mechanics. And now, this concept will constantly determine your behavior, and you will suffer because of it. Of course, you will experience various psychosomatic symptoms, you will feel pangs of conscience and shame. You might immediately start to feel a fear of rejection. Everything is within this concept. Your body will feel drained, you won't follow your desires, your energy, your needs, and you will even refuse to recognize these needs or be aware of them. Is that clear? Instead, you will create your own inner hell. Those who are familiar with toxic shame know this well. Or you might go down another pathon of shock value and try to shock the public, taking pride in yourself. You'll do everything you can to suppress your shame. You'll strive for achievements, but in reality, you remain just as unhappy, hungry, and frightened. And there will be no happiness in that. That's the concept. Is that clear? And we have a huge number of such concepts. A vast array of concepts related to the body, emotions, behaviors, life, ideas about ourselves, and ideas about the world. You have identified yourself with all of these concepts. And once you've identified with these concepts, what is formed is what I call the self paradigm. What we sometimes call the ego or the personality, right? Identity, call it whatever word you like. You consider this to be yourself. Just think about it. You took all the crap in your life and consider it to be yourself. You made yourself a slave and think that's who you are. What's more, you might even be proud of it. Did you get a cut? No, but now I'm proud of it. We're proud of our personality. Just look at these common expressions in Russian. You're not born a personality, you become one. He's a real personality. Is that clear? He's not even a real person, but this one is a true human being. So it's a collection of concepts that have put you in a prison, and you consider that prison to be yourself. You've gotten used to living there. You don't see the world beyond its walls. Being an immense total power of vital energy, you consider yourself, what's the word? An owner? I don't know, an owner? I don't know. You live as an inmate of this prison. You might even try to beautify it. You try to change this concept. In this prison, you hang up pretty curtains, maybe even arrange some flowers, hang up paintings. Some people even manage to hang, painting some Rembrandt's paintings or put a golden toilet in this prison. But it remains a prison. You can hang up all your certificates, diplomas, academic degrees all over this prison, but it still remains a prison. That, my friends, is what conceptions are. And now, of course, you probably have this feeling. Igor, tell us how to overcome concepts, how to defeat concepts. Your way of thinking is distorted, guys. You can't defeat concepts. Do you know why? Because as soon as you try to defeat concepts, you have to use concepts. And then some concepts will try to defeat other concepts. In one case, the old concepts will fight back and become even stronger. It's a familiar situation. When you want to get rid of some problem in your relationships, your addictions, or I don't know, any of your symptoms, you work on yourself, try to overcome them with willpower, but they only get stronger. Have you noticed that? Or you might manage to defeat these concepts, but then another concept will form in their place, and you'll suffer from it in a different way. One symptom gets replaced by another. It's like in that joke. The fork has been pulled out of the liver, but now it's stuck in the eye because the ophthalmologist works until 8, and the surgeon or hematologist's workday is over. That's pretty much how the lives of people who fight against concepts are arranged. Now listen to me. Attention! There is no problem with concepts. There are absolutely no problems with concepts. Don't fight them. The first thing I tell students who come to my experiential psychotherapy training program is this: don't fight concepts. Let them exist. But don't, under any circumstances, conclude that you are them. For this, you need a few things: your sensitivity, awareness, freedom of choice, and presence. I'll highlight two of them: awareness and presence. If you start to be present and attentive within these concepts whose existence you suspect if you open your eyes, your heart, and your ears, you will notice that at the core of your concept, they are simply phenomena. Why do concepts have power? Let's go over this again. This is important to understand for transformation right now. Every phenomenon that forms the basis of a concept contains a certain amount of energy. So why do they come together? Each of these phenomena, the ones I just described, lays all of this out on the chessboard, and they each transmit their energy. They transmit their energy through connections, and now the concept remains solid 90%. 90% of the energy from the phenomena of feelings, bodily reactions, choices, perceptions of the world, of life, of oneself and others, and needs, all of these are phenomena. 90% of the energy is transferred to the common pool, so to speak. It goes into the collective fund, and now the concept possesses its own independent power. All the characters appear simultaneously. That is, if you feel something, you are also thinking, even if you might not notice it, but at the moment when you feel ashamed, you are thinking something about yourself and about other people. If you are angry, you think something about yourself and other people, and you do something about it. And all of this happens simultaneously. You may be aware of some parts, you may not be aware of others, but it is all happening at the same time and controlling you. That's why the concept becomes rigid, because the lion's share of energy is now there, and the phenomena themselves can no longer break away or go beyond, since they have pulled together into a whole. That is, 90 or 95% of their energy has been given to these common connections, and now they can't just leave, because the force of attraction becomes stronger. You see what I mean, right? That's why when you struggle with concepts, well, it's pretty hard to overcome them. But if you become attentive, sensitive, and aware, and all of this happens in presence, then you notice that in fact concepts are something made up of separate phenomena, which are basically just certain thoughts about yourself, about the world, about your body, about what you are supposed to feel. And when you start to examine this, at that moment your attention does several things. First, it allows the energy of these connections to return to the phenomenon again, thanks to your awareness, attentiveness, and presence. And presence and attentiveness, on the other hand, allow new phenomena to emerge from beyond these concepts, something you hadn't seen before. For example, you discover that when you feel ashamed, since we're talking about shame, you also start to feel a lot of gratitude toward the people who listen to you attentively. That wasn't there before. And when you feel this gratitude, your shame becomes less, or it becomes bearable. You become creative. Previously, you didn't notice your needs for this kind of energy. It has appeared. You see when it happens, right? In other words, real phenomena occur along with their energy. But for this to happen, you need to learn to feel, to see, and to be open to being surprised. And when this happens, you will notice something new, both outside and within this concept. And that's when the concept begins to dissolve. You will see that in reality, it's just a myth, an illusion. It's like a mirage in the desert. You see, there seems to be water, but as you approach, it's not there. Or like on a hot day on the road, you see what looks like some kind of vapor, as if there's some liquid there, but as you walk closer, there's nothing. The closer you get, the more you realize there's nothing there. Or when you look at the sky and see clouds with sharp outlines. But if you've ever flown in an airplane through them, you've surely noticed that it's just like some kind of mist. It's simply that the molecules are closer together, just gathering near each other. But from here, you see it as a dense formation, especially with storm clouds. Or the sky is blue, but when you go up higher, it's completely transparent. A plane flying at 10,000 meters is still in clear sky, but we see it as blue. You understand, right? It's all an illusion. That's exactly how it is with your concepts. You see them as real. But when you start paying close attention to them, you see that they're imposters, and they're forced to return that energy. And that's how concepts are destroyed. Igor, you might say. But what you're telling us right now is also a concept, isn't it? Yes. Experiential psychotherapy is a concept. Just like Buddhism, Taoism, Advaita, Vedanta, Christianity, quantum mechanics, all of these are concepts. But some of these concepts, well, like Buddhism, Advaita Vedanta, to some extent certainly, because modern Buddhism is heavily conceptualized. The concept of experiential psychotherapy, let me talk about that, is totally non-conceptual. But in order to express it, a concept is needed. Of course, it's as if, you use this concept in order to access the living nature, awareness, presence. It's like, say you're eating a cutlet or a juicy steak and a piece of meat gets stuck in your teeth. What do? You take a toothpick. You take a toothpick and pick out the piece of meat. What do you do next with the toothpick or the nut? What do? You throw it away. You don't say, oh, this toothpick is me. Place it under the mirror and pray to it. Honestly, wouldn't that be idiotic? In other words, a concept like, for example, the concept of experiential psychotherapy, or the concept I'm creating for you right now is the same thing. It's just a toothpick you use to pick out the meat. Forget what I'm telling you. Don't believe me at all. Don't try to take notes on what I'm saying. My videos are simply a way to shine a light inside you, into your own nature, so that you notice yourself. It doesn't matter whether I'm right or not. Who cares? Don't believe a single word I say. Doesn't matter. I'm not here to prove that I'm right. There is no such thing as being right. It's all illusions, bluff, myth. Don't believe me. Don't look for who's right. Don't do it, friends. I'm not here to end up being right. I'm here to show you yourselves. If you look, you'll discover it for yourself. Observe the concepts and you will see yourself there. That's all I need. And I don't even expect that from you. But if my videos shine anywhere, it's in this direction. Not towards being right, not towards a new concept. Is that clear? In other words, a concept is needed just to pull out a splinter, or like when you use a needle to remove a splinter, and then the needle goes back to doing its own thing. You take out the splinter, and that's it. We don't need anything else. Water is needed to boil an egg, but you don't keep the water after you've boiled the egg. Right? Yes? That's the concept behind experiential psychotherapy. It is non-conceptual. So your task, guys, and this is the most important thing, to be free from concepts. Well, let the concepts be there. For example, you watch, you subscribe to some channel. You don't choose which videos will be released on that channel. They come out according to some schedule on their own. You watch, say, you subscribe to some TV channel, and there are various programs, shows, and broadcasts happening there. You don't control that process. Straightforward. You can file complaints as the editors for something, but you don't control it. So let the concepts leave. The channel keeps running, but you don't identify yourself with every show, every program. You watch some things, skip others, sometimes you have fun, sometimes you ignore it, sometimes you cry, but you don't identify yourself with them, right? So why is it different with concepts? Let them be. Let them live. There's no harm in them as long as you don't cling to them with the grip of a frightened person. Oh, that's me. Oh, that's me. That's not you. You have always been present. A free, boundless, unchanging presence. It is within you that these programs are running, within presence, and not presence within the programs, but the programs running within presence. Concepts unfold within presence. This is the form in which presence has manifested. Do not confuse the form with the essence. You will never know what I am truly like. And you don't know what another person is like, even your husband or wife. And you don't need to. But it's precisely this that makes us interested in them, because that is the form. But in essence, both you and your husband are presence, and I am presence as well. It's just that this form of presence highlights for you areas in your life where, to your surprise, you may discover that you are much more, that what stands behind them is presence itself. In fact, right now, it is only presence speaking with presence here. There is no Ira talking to Masha. There is simply presence, within which something is happening, something is being said. And this speaking is simply happening. That's all, nothing more. There is a lot of freedom in this. You don't need to depend on concepts. That is, your task is to live with concepts, to be grateful for them, because sometimes they serve a very important function. For example, some concepts help you be a good sales manager, entrepreneur, businessman, accountant, or psychotherapist. Let them help. Great. To the extent that you need them, let them help. But they should always be auxiliary. Even in professional success, you will achieve much more from presence than from a concept. But a concept sometimes provides structure, helps us perform certain functions, but do not identify with them. That is not you. It is simply a set of mirages, a collection of thoughts that you have by some absurd accident linked together. Do you want to deal with this? Don't put it off for later. Regain your ability to be present in contact, your attentiveness in contact, your awareness. If you need our help, feel free to reach out. At our academy, we have a large number of excellent therapists, great group facilitators, and instructors who can do this for you. I am also one of those who leads some of the groups, and perhaps even a significant or the majority of the groups in our academy. I will leave the links here. If you want to join our program, don't hesitate to submit your application and come, or simply stay a lively, happy person. Be happy and exist before what you call concepts be, before the thoughts that arise in you, because you have always existed before them. The concept will pass, but the sense that you exist will remain, right? Right now, you can pause this video or even mute it, close your eyes, plug your ears, and this I am, it will not change. Presence doesn't go anywhere, it will still remain. I am will remain. You always exist, before thoughts, after thoughts, between thoughts. You are always the same one. And now I look into it, into this you, because I can't look anywhere else. I see you through presence. Many years ago, I described this experience. I saw presence in other people, and now I can't unsee it. So know that you are much more than you think you are. This was Igor Pogodin with you. See you in new videos. Goodbye.